comfortable here, so I just
The other Ryan.
Oh, it's been fantastic. Been fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Even now? You've been.
happy to make extemporaneous comments from the front row.
Always happens.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to the stage Colonel Mike Black, U.S. Air Force retired, Vice President for Defense, AFCEA International.
All right, good afternoon. We don't have the walk-up music here, but if you think about the Super Bowl, the last song that Usher did, yeah, that's my walk-up song. It's a clean version, Little John and Ludacris in it too, okay? Really, good afternoon and welcome to the session today. This panel is, do we have the tools and technologies we need to enable information as a warfighting multiplier? Again, I'm Mike Black. I'm the Vice President for Defense here at AFCEA International, and it's my pleasure to introduce this afternoon's panel. But before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank thank Comtech for their sponsorship of this panel session. Comtech is represented this afternoon by Billy Sims, Vice President for Growth. So please join me in a round of applause for Comtech. Now, I have the pleasure and the pressure of introducing our moderator, who's my boss, and actually my old boss who told me not to look him in the eye when I'm up here, Admiral Spicer, is here as well. So that's double pressure to have that. But Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, Army retired, President and CEO for AFCEA International. Now, her remarkable career, when she went from E1 to 09, culminated with her assignment as the G6 and the CIO for the United States Army, where she managed the defense enterprise systems, IT infrastructure, C4 solutions, and advanced technology used by the military warfighter to support the civilian workforce. Additionally, she helped develop Army Cyber Command and worked directly with senior staff members, including the Secretary and the Chief of Staff of the Army, to reduce costs and improve the effectiveness of cyber and other IT operations. She's a leader in the Defense Information Technology communication systems, and after retiring from the Army, before coming to AFCEA, she worked for both Booz Allen and Accenture Federal. She joined AFCEA in January 2022 as our first female president and CEO. So General Lawrence, I thank you and all the panelists for joining us today. And I'm going to turn it over to you. But one thing I'm going to say is I also go back with General Skinner on the crud table, and I'll let you figure out who was better in crud. I mean, look at my body. And also, I served with General Glavy at the White House. So, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that. And for those of you that were with me last year, General Glavy and Admiral Bartz, I like the topic a whole lot better this year as we kind of rode through the challenges of last year. But this is exactly in theme with what's happening here with the conference this week. And the CNO talked about it, and all of our keynote speakers have talked about the importance, as we heard from Admiral Popera today, about the need to make sure that we have the right data at the right time, the criticality of information as we look at it as a warfighting multiplier. So each of these key leaders, and I'm excited about this panel this year, and their organizations have a critical role in supporting the warfighter. In the current environment, near-peer competition, it is imperative that we leverage the technologies and the capabilities available, and that these organizations can synchronize across the joint and combined warfighting environments to maximize the results. And we hear a lot about that. We'll hear about it again in November when we go back over for TechNet Indo-Pacific. And you hear it from the senior leaders all the time. We will not fight alone. We need our allies and our coalition partners with us as we go forward. So as we look at that, we're going to talk about some things ensuring the combined joint all-domain command and control systems, how we empower our joint force commanders and their capabilities across the warfighting domains and throughout the electromagnetic spectrum to deter and, if necessary, defeat any adversary at any time, in any place around the world. Using artificial intelligence, which we've heard a lot about, securely and effectively is key. We've heard General Skinner talk about this in multiple venues, and we look forward to more information there. Gathering and sharing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance information securely and accurately and in a timely manner as we look at those domains in the joint and combined environment. Extending cloud capabilities to the edge, and everything has got to operate at the edge. We need to plan our architectures and build our solutions from the edge back to the Pentagon, not the other way around, as we look at information as a warfighting imperative. Essential is, again, and we're working at this hard, everybody up here on this in this panel, applying identity, credentials, and access management. And what does that look like as we move into the future to secure our enterprises and make sure that we have the right capabilities at the right time and access to those capabilities as we do this. So again, I'm excited about our panel that's here with us today, their experience and what they're doing for our nation. So our first panelist, Ms. Jane Rathbun, Chief Information Officer, Department of the Navy. Congratulations, ma'am. You were acting last time we were together, so this is great news for us. And we appreciate all that you're doing for us as you serve as the Department of Navy CIO, driving continuous improvement and innovation on the information technology portfolio valued at over $12 billion. And in this role, she ensures the alignment of IT investments, the priorities for the Secretary of the Navy, guides the execution of the information superiority vision, focusing on modernization, innovation, and defense of our enterprise and our business IT. Ms. Rathbun plays a key advocacy role for the Department of the Navy's data and cyber IT workforce initiative, doing a lot of look at taking care of the workforce and what does that workforce need to look like in the future as we move forward. Her key focus areas are cyber readiness, zero trust architecture, optimizing our transport diversity through commercial technologies, looking at SIPR 2.0, and movement to the cloud and enterprise services delivery. Ma'am, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to be a lively group, so you don't fall asleep. We've got 2 thorns between some roses and then another thorn on the end. So, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for having me come and be part of this esteemed panel. I am lucky enough to work with every single person up here to deliver our warfighters the best capability that we can, and I'm honored to be here. As the Don's CIO, I am responsible for all the things that you said, really making sure that we guide, shape, steer, build policies, and execute, and even investment priorities that really meet our warfighters' requirements. Our golden rule in the Don CIO is securely move information from anywhere to anywhere for decision advantage. Information is combat power. I do believe that it will be the decision advantage of the future, and how do we enable that? Future state for me is where the warfighter is given decision-ready information from which to act upon, not have to fuse it at the tactical edge. And so all of that kind of future state vision drives a lot of the initiatives, a lot of where we want to go. Our information security vision 1.0 is about modernize, innovate, and defend. How do we build an information ecosystem that can move data from anywhere to anywhere securely? How do we bring in new technologies, new ways of thinking about delivering that information, securing that information, consuming that information, and then how do we secure that information, and how do we make sure that our Cyber C2 operations, ConOps ecosystems are very much taken into account when we're designing capabilities. And so those are kind of what drive our efforts in the Department of Navy's CIO. My key focus areas right now are our data maneuverability, moving to a zero trust model across all of our platforms, cyber ready, moving away from this idea of ATO every 3 years to one where you're earning the right to operate every day, that you are producing the right telemetry off your system so that the Cyber 2 operators know what's occurring and can act and respond and can manage the risk. And so that, again, drives what we think about, how we modernize, what we're modernizing, what we're focusing on. That, I will pass it over to the next guy or gal.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, ma'am. Our next panelist is Lieutenant General Robert J. Skinner, United States Air Force. He's the Director of Defense Information Systems Agency and the Commander of Joint Force Headquarters, Department of Defense Information Network, or the DoDIN. As the Director, he manages a global network leading nearly 19,000 service members, civilians, and contractors who plan, develop, and operate joint interoperable command and control capabilities and defends an enterprise infrastructure in more than 42 countries. This mission directly supports the President, Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and our combatant commanders, as well as our Department of Defense components and other mission partners as we look at it. In his spectrum of across the competitive combat and combat support operations is really critical and key to our success to all of our services, agencies, and combatant commanders as he provides the quality, secure, on-time requirements as we do. That's a little challenging for you. He's also charged with leading unified action across DoD to secure, operate, and defend the DoDIN. And he leads the establishment of priorities and directs threat-informed actions through formal planning and future initiatives, as well as the command and control of daily unified network operations. Very much key to supporting our Department of Defense CIO and our Cybercom commander on the ground as he moves forward in defensive operations of the DoDIN. Sir, thank you for being with us this week.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, that's kind of loud. Or just me. No. Wait till General Glavy gets on it. I don't think he'll need a microphone, though. So first off, thanks for being here, right? I will tell you, as Admiral Paparo and most individuals I've talked about, partners and partnership is key. And it's a partnership not just within the department or with the federal government. It's with industry, it's with academia. And so your partnership is what's going to continue to give us positional advantage for the foreseeable future, and I would offer forever. So thank you. General Lawrence, esteemed panel members, thanks for allowing us to be part of this. This is the first time I've been out to West, and so I've been a great warm welcome from everyone, and so again, thanks for letting us be part of this. When I look at kind of what is on my mind each and every day, I will tell you there's nothing more important than operational resilience, right? Operational capability has to be there no matter what, right? And at the time and place of our choosing. Everything else is great, modernization is great, but at the end of the day, we have to have operational capability each and every day for our warfighters, for our mission partners, and everyone who relies on what we provide. And I would offer that there is no mission in the department that doesn't have a DISA component to it in some form or fashion, whether it's a contract that was let, whether it's identity, whether it's resiliency from a transport standpoint. Now, there may be somebody out there who says, well, I got this small little mission that doesn't rely on DISA. I'd love to have a conversation with you because then I'll change my talking point. But at the end of the day, it's things that we are providing each and every day that is the most important. So when I look at operational resiliency, right, this is the ability to, as Ms. Rathman said, right, that data is available at the time and place of our decision makers so that they have that information to make an informed decision before the adversary has time to complete their decision loop. And that's constant, right? And so you have to have the transport there, you have to have the cloud there, you have to have the applications. Because at the end of the day, all that kind of works together to inform that decision. And that's what we kind of are focused on each and every day. The other thing that we're looking at is legacy to modernization, right? We have what we have, right? We have a lot of legacy out there. Time division multiplexing. Yes, that's a four-letter acronym for four-letter word for a three-letter acronym, right? How do we move forward from TDM to IP-based that doesn't impact current operations and current capability, and do it fast enough so that the cost is not prohibited? Applications and application development. How do we get our applications, our legacy applications, to be modern and modernize them without affecting current operations and without affecting the resiliency of those operations in a non-cost prohibitive manner, right? What are the APIs that are necessary? What are the other things, the interfaces that we could leverage? Because I would offer today, we are more and more a software department than we are a hardware department. We still have a lot of hardware out there, and at the end of the day, as Admiral Paparo talked about this morning, right, there's still going to be those domains that are going to be critical to our warfighting operations. But we, in my eyes, are a software organization. And so how do we leverage software better to get at the decision space that Jane talked about a little bit earlier? And then I would just say a final point is simplification, right? If we can be ridiculously simple to be ridiculously strong, that's our goal. So how can we bring the force together with the technology and the processes? Because one of the questions that we were asked is, do we have the right tools and technologies to enable information advantage for our warfighters and our mission partners? I would say that question is not deep enough. Because do we have the right harmonization between the processes and the structure, the technology, and the people that gives us decision advantage and an advantage in the information domain? Information environment, sorry. That's the question that we need to ask. And so as we look at the technology, right, how can we make the technology simpler so that our force can be more proficient? And it doesn't matter if we're going from the Air Force to the Army to the Navy to the Coast Guard to the Space Force, that it's simple enough that it doesn't take a significant amount of time to be proficient in that capability. And what are the things that we can use automation and technology to streamline so that our force can be focused on that critical thinking that is necessary for the hard problems that we have? Very dynamic environment. All you have to do is look at open source and what's on the news to understand how dynamic and complex of an environment. We have to simplify it for our force to be more proficient. And so the final thing I'll say in all of this is, how do we get parity across networks, right? We need to be able to have the same capabilities no matter what network we're operating on, no matter what classification level we're operating on, and I need your help to help us understand how we can help you help us in whatever processes, instructions, regulations, even laws that we can help change to make things a little bit easier so that we can get after this secure, protected, and resilient environment. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Our next panelist is Lieutenant General Matthew G. Glavey, United States Marine Corps, Deputy Commandant for Information, Headquarters, United States Marine Corps. General Glavey was commissioned in May of '86 through the United States Naval Academy, and upon receiving his wings in September of 1988, he was selected to fly the mighty Sea Knights, the CH-46. In June of 2023, General Glavey also assumed the duties of Director of Marine Corps Intelligence. He previously served as the commander of the Marine Forces Cyberspace Command and was the first commander of the Marine Corps Forces Space Command. Resiliency, sir. I like that.
General Lawrence, thanks for inviting me back. That's always a good sign to be invited back. And though it's a highlight being on this panel with you, ma'am, and these great board members, I'll tell you what the highlight of West so far were those Copernicus Awards that you did last night, along with our USNA teammates as well. Really powerful. It's all about people. And the fact that you went way out of your way to recognize them. We had 7 Marines parochially, most ever, but it was really cool to kind of watch that happen. And if there is really a shining part to everything we're going to talk about, it's really these amazing, amazing people. So from the bottom of my heart, thank also to the industry partners. Been walking around here really inspired as well by everything you're doing, paying attention very closely to what we're doing, and really putting a nice touch on what really has to happen. So thank you for that. So last night I woke up like I always do, 60-year-old man, and of course I can't help myself, but I had to look at my phone, right? I always do it, I regret it, but I do it anyway. And so I got about 16 different text messages, all on the same thing. So if you didn't know, in the last 24 hours, same thing happened about 2 weeks ago. 3 souped-up jet skis, right, sunk another Russian man of war, right? Millions, tens of millions of dollars, along with incredible amount of readiness and other capabilities, end up at the bottom of the Black Sea. Marine Corps, Admiral Paparo talked about warfighting functions. And why that's so important, especially him as a commander, the warfighting functions drive planning and execution. You can only imagine everything it takes has to be considered, certainly a person of his incredible responsibility and accountability. But the warfighting functions allow focus. And if you didn't know this, right, the latest one, he said 7, and he's exactly right. The 7th warfighting function is information. I think if I quizzed all the people in uniform, I don't know if they know that. Secretary Mattis, 2018, mandated information as a warfighting function. And I'll tell you, the Marine Corps has been off and running here, right? Really grappling with this idea of how do you take information and really put it in to the planning and execution posture. Because if you don't, right, if you bolt it on, right, it ain't going to work out so well. So we have, like everything else, we started writing. General Berger, very cerebral as the 38th Commandant. General Smith is our 39th Commandant, pushing forward extensively. We wrote MCDP 8, Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 8, Information. And I'll kind of skip to the chase, but the outcomes that we're driving to are 3, right? There's a lot, but for the sake of quantifying, there were 3. The first is this idea of systems overmatch, right? We have to win the 1 and 0 fight. We have to win that fight. As using the example of actions in the Black Sea, a far superior force, right? Every quantifiable order of battle that you could imagine, right, shows up on one side of the ledger, vice the other. But the adversary that wins the systems overmatch, right, this idea of souped up jet skis full of software driving in and destroying tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and to do it twice, right, in less than 2 weeks. And if you haven't seen the videos, right, if you want to know what the power of software looks like, right, what the power of ones and zeros and winning that fight looks like. But that's not enough. If they were to do that and that's all we would know about, it's like screaming and yelling in a padded room. The fact that at 2 o'clock in the morning, I clicked on my phone and was probably 6,038,000 of watchers to what just happened less than 24 hours ago gets to the second point of where the Marine Corps is going with information, and that's the prevailing narrative, right? They just crushed it, right? So they won the ones and zeros fight. They win the prevailing narrative fight, because, right, that matters. And they did it, obviously, through the incredible ability to adapt to the technology. The third aspect of this, and this will happen, right? This is a part of warfare. There's going to be a countermove, right? And as we built this idea of information, the third aspect was resiliency. They're going to come back at you, right? And we've seen this fight do this, move, counter-move, move, counter-move. So the idea of resiliency, being able to take a punch, especially in this information environment, is critical. And whether it's disinformation, misinformation, or the counterstrike in that systems overmatch discussion, it has to be accounted for. It has to be accounted for in planning. It has to be accounted for in execution. And at the end of the day, 2 weeks from now, none of that shit may work, right? Russians are adaptable too, right? They know how the electromagnetic spectrum works. They're pretty damn good at it too. So there'll be a move, right? And then there'll be a counter move, and all the naysayers will come out and say, see, we told you, right? It's autonomous, unmanned stuff, really doesn't work like you think it does. Until 2 weeks later, right? That someone's, right, doing what's magical about software, changing the model, changing how this apparatus is going to gain an overmatch, and here we go again. So we find ourselves in this move, counter move, endless array, and we could only imagine at a peer competitor level what that actually means. So I'll leave it at that. We'll certainly dive into more of this as the question and answers go, but again, General Lawrence, thank you for inviting me back.
Thank you very much, General Glavy. We always appreciate your insights. It's exciting, and if you can't get excited about that kind of message, we're in the wrong business, right? That's exciting. Ms. Jennifer Edgen, it's great to see you on the West Coast. Jennifer is the Assistant Deputy Chief of Naval Operations Information Warfare, N2 N6B, Office of the Chief Naval Operations. Ms. Edgen assumed her current position as the Assistant Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare in October of 2022. In this role, she manages requirements, policies, and resources for communications, networks, ISR, oceanography, space, cyber, electronic warfare, and command and control capabilities. She leads the strategy, planning, programming, budgeting, and execution for investments of over $9 billion per year in more than 200 different Navy programs and 52,000 military, civilian, and contractor personnel. Additionally, she oversees the Navy's Chief Information and Cybersecurity offices. Ma'am, it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction. And I would like to say it is a big portfolio, but we have a lot of fun. So, and I struggled with what would my opening remarks be today, particularly being the fourth speaker. So, because if I look at the folks that preceded me, I agree with the lenses that they've brought to the conversation. So my challenge was, how do I be different? And so I'd first like to offer, we frame this question about information as a warfighting multiplier. I'm going to proffer information is already a warfighting multiplier. You heard it from the CNO, you heard it from Admiral Paparo, and you don't need to look any further than the evening news. But I'm dating myself with that reference. You don't need to look any further than your smartphone to see America's warfighting Navy operating every day and operating effectively using information. So I want to make sure that, make no mistake, information is a warfighting multiplier. And oftentimes when we talk information capabilities, we focus on the tools and technology. Do we have the right tools? Do we have enough tools? I'd like to offer that as a department, we're really, really good at identifying new tools. We're really, really good at taking a new tool and starting to distribute it. Where we fall short is how does something new operate in our brownfield or in our existing platform-centric Navy and information technology foundation. So let me explain what I mean by that. I like to say right now we're really good at a buy and replace model for information technology. I've joined the government over 20 years ago, and we were really good at buying large-scale IT-based systems. We'd give folks some training, we'd deploy them, we might come back every couple of years, give some updated training, maybe some new patches, and then 10, 20 years later, we'd rip everything out and put in a whole new thing, and the cycle would start over again. That's really good at identifying technology. That's not the space that we need to operate in moving forward. The space that we need to operate in moving forward is a buy and sustain model. And that's not just sustainment of cybersecurity patches. That's embodying the Defense Innovation Board's report of software is never done. Our challenge is how do we create this pipeline? How do we create the ecosystem where technologies are onboarded quickly? They thrive in a foundation led by DISA. We've embraced all of the components in the cloud. And that we've offered and unleashed sailors the opportunity to orchestrate those tools and interact with authoritative data to support the decision-making cycle of our commanders. That's what our future looks like. So I like to say technology and tools, they're a rising tide. And as we all know, a rising tide elevates all boats. So when we talk about our ecosystem of people, process, things, and data, technology is a way that we can embody that to elevate our game to continue to meet and exceed where the adversary is, where we will find the adversary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. As we're introducing our last panelist, you all be thinking about your questions. Again, the microphone's right here in the center. And again, you cannot find a better panel of experts in this area than what's sitting up here now, so please engage with them. Our last panelist is Rear Admiral Christopher A. Bartz, United States Coast Guard, in a much different role than you were last time we were together. He is now the Acting Chief Information Officer, Department of Homeland Security. Rear Admiral Bartz most recently served as the U.S. Coast Guard's Assistant Commandant for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, and Information Technologies, CG6. And in this capacity, he also served as the Coast Guard's Chief Information Officer. Rear Admiral Bartz previously served as the Director of Training and Exercise, J6, at United States Cyber Command. There, he developed joint training and readiness standards and orchestrated large-scale exercises for active duty and reserve cyber mission forces, our partner nations, government agencies, and private industry. Sir, it's great to have you back.
Hey, thanks, General Lawrence. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank AFCEA and the Naval Institute for allowing me to speak today. So when I was planning to come down to West, I had a totally different role. As General Lawrence mentioned, I was the CIO of the Coast Guard until a few weeks ago. The Chief Information Officer of DHS, Mr. Eric Hyson, gave me a call and we said, hey, we'd like you to come up to the department and serve as the Deputy CIO up there. So I started last week. So there are 22 components within DHS. I am learning those 22 components, but I will talk a little bit about the component that I know the best, which is the Coast Guard. So over the last couple of years that I've been the CIO of the Coast Guard, I've been managing our portfolio in about 4 different ways. One is we're really focusing on our capital assets. So right now, the Coast Guard's undergoing one of its largest fleet modernizations ever. We've commissioned 9 of 11 national security cutters. We've just started building the offshore patrol cutter with a program of record of 25 of those, 3 polar glass heavy icebreakers, and 64 fast response cutters. And those fast response cutters are mostly deployed. Many of them are deployed right now in the Indo-PACOM and also CENTCOM AORs. So they're out there doing mission. So this fleet has modernized command and control, modernized weapon systems. They're all Navy Aegis based. So we work very closely with the Navy on those systems. And we're also an active stakeholder in Project Overmatch. So we are very closely engaged with my Navy counterparts in making sure that fleet is interoperable. So that comes out to over 100 ships. And those aren't just ships that are working domestically, they're working internationally, they're working in Oceania, they're working in the Persian Gulf. That is one way that we are trying to get the tools out to the workforce. The Coast Guard's uniquely suited for operations across the competition continuum, and the interoperability allows us to integrate with the Navy as well as allies and partners. Our second focus area is investment in technologies that ensure maritime domain awareness. So typically, this is occurring within the maritime transportation system, which is a domestic mission for us. The MTS is defined as over 14,000 miles of waterways, ports, and shoreside facilities. And over 90% of our imports and exports kind of go through this MTS. So a maritime domain awareness in this area is really, really important for us. So we've taken a new approach to MDA, or maritime domain awareness, in the MTS. We call it Project Minerva. Project Minerva was a new way to look at how do we deal with our stovepipe systems that really have trouble because of the way that they were acquired, passing data and allowing information to be aggregated. Really, the way that we've acquired our C2 systems in the past really kind of inhibit data sharing, and it also degrades our C2 posture. So Minerva is a way for us to get after that. Minerva is going to help us with data management and implementation of AI as well. And under Minerva, we've also taken lessons learned from Task Force 59, and we've been able to experiment with some of the technologies that Task Force 59 has been using. So, for example, we recently deployed some sail drones down to off the coast of Haiti to try to detect migrant vessels that were leaving Haiti bound for the U.S. The third area of focus that we've had in the Coast Guard is on our IT systems. So the Coast Guard has 11 statutory missions. Those 11 statutory missions bring about a lot of applications. Not all of those missions are similar, and so we have hundreds of applications that manage different parts of our portfolio. So the other thing that I'm really concerned about is our business systems. One thing that we've learned over the past several years is that if you can't pay your people and you can't pay vendors, that is a major mission degrader for us. We saw that in the where DoD really didn't face it, but the rest of the government faced the shutdown in 2019, where we were basically unable to pay our workforce for about 30 days, and that pretty much shut us down. People were really concerned about feeding their families, and we couldn't do mission. We also had some problems with our latest financial system. And most of you know that we did have some problems there making payments also. So typically in the past, my concern would be for operational systems, but I've learned better, and financial systems are really kind of at the top of the list. And then lastly, I think all of the panel's members have mentioned security and resilience of our system. That's kind of the fourth focused area. And really what that means to me is how do I implement zero trust? So last year, we just awarded our 7-year, $1 billion infrastructure managed services contract. And so we're really looking for that contract as a way to do our implementation of zero trust for networks and endpoints. But we also got a lot of work to do in applications. And so we do have another contract coming out on the books. It's called Agile Compass. And so that's an initiative to get to a multi-vendor BPA to help us use the best of what you all do to modernize our applications and get them into the cloud. Implement data management, big data analytics, and AI. And so I'll go ahead and stop there, but look forward to the rest of the discussion, the questions, and the questions from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All great presentations, great thoughts. And while the audience is getting ready to engage at the microphone, I'm going to call an audible here, because as I was listening to each of you present, and then we heard it from two of our keynote speakers about information. So I remember being in the 2nd Armor Division with General Bates, and he calls the G2, G3, G6 in and chews us out, and he says, I'm in the middle of this warfighting exercise, and I don't have the information I need to execute this. Fast forward, I'm in Operation Desert Thunder. General Riley's 3rd Infantry Division calls the G2, G3, G6 in and says, all you are doing is throwing information at me. I don't know what's a priority. I don't know what I'm supposed to be responding to. And so how do we take this, as we heard this week, all of this information and make it relevant as we're delivering it? It's a tough challenge. Ma'am, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that if we're going to do this, we got to start with what the warfighter is asking for to do their mission. What kinds of questions do they need to answer? What kind of information do they need? Again, I was at the large-scale exercise last summer with Ms. Edgen and some other folks, and we talked to General Kavanaugh and Admiral Kilby, and talked to the folks on the operations floor and asked them, what are head herders, what are challenges? It was about integration and interoperability of information. It was about needing to take the information on the mock floor and have them fuse it. And I think we have to rethink that calculus, that information is coming at them very quickly, a lot of information. We need to focus on understanding our data, understanding our information, tagging it, managing it, making it transparent. We need to be able to leverage and harness the capabilities of things like large language modeling. But in order to do that, we have to rethink how we manage our information. Our information, right now, risk and consequence of loss equals network environment, right? So if you're top secret, you're in a top secret environment. If you're secret data, you're in a secret environment, et cetera. If I'm going to do large language modeling, deep learning, build trained models that can be consumed at the tactical edge that are going to need data from all those sources, I have to rethink how I house, compute, store, so that I can, again, build trained models that are ready to consume new data at the tactical edge without moving all the data to the edge, because we're not going to do that. I do need to leverage, Bob Stevenson on our Monday session called it the digital divide. I do need to leverage all of these technologies that we are experimenting and using. SATCOM, game changer, proliferated low Earth orbit, being able to have bandwidth where you didn't have it before, gives us ultimate redundant paths for our customers, our warfighters, to access information. I learned from the Marines that they're working on hiding in the spectrum instead of shutting down. So, we're gonna take all of these new operations, innovations, technologies. Cloud is critical to this conversation, and having the right information ecosystem. I think Bob, you talked about that. Complexity kills, right? Let's build those reference architectures that are informed by ConOps of what people need to decide, what information that they're going to need. It's going to change, right? They're going to need information that they didn't know that they needed, but how do we get that information and get it to them in a consumable format? That has to be driving our future state with our acquisition partners, with our readiness folks, with our business operations folks, and with our warfighters. It's not just a technology problem, it's a management problem. It is a people having the right folks with the right focus, like data managers. We don't have a lot of those people. But if we're going to make data consumable and usable and not something you throw at your boss for him to figure out or her to figure out, we've got to manage that information and think through the entire process. I grew up as an ops research analyst, so that probably taints my thought that we do want to make information data-driven decisions, but we got to get our hands around the data to do that. We need policies, we need standards and guardrails. We don't need to be building information ecosystems by program. We really need to treat the information ecosystem as a strategic asset platform that delivers, that is secure, that isn't too complex, and that allows us to maneuver data and applications and whatever the warfighter needs.
Great. General Skinner, I know you face it a lot.
Yeah. So Jane gave a very comprehensive answer. There's not a lot to add to it, so great job. I'll just say, if you just think about it, right? See, understand, decide, and act. I mean, it's a very simple concept, but it requires technology to help, right? Do we have the right sensors in the right places? And it doesn't matter which domain that you're talking about. Is that information that is being collected, is the right information being collected to then enable that decision maker to the calculus that how they are deciding things? Does it give them that right information to decide what the best course of action is? And what are the areas and the use cases for these decision makers that will allow potentially automated action on those decisions? That's really what this is all about. And so I would just offer that how do we leverage the technology to enable the complex problems to be solved through that very simple four-step process. And I would offer that the organization or the person or the team that does that the fastest is one that's going to have that positional advantage. And so I would reach out to industry to go, how do we make that faster and more clean and more crisp in those information requirements?
Yeah, that's, we have a lot of industry here in the audience. I would like to hear from you, and the panel would. What do you need from us as you're looking at your challenges that you're going through? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Hart from Deloitte. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I want to turn the table a little bit and talk about JADC2, which not that recently had an upscope, so to speak, by adding the prefix C, the overall acronym. Clear guidance and implication is that it is intended now to direct us to figure out how to communicate and share with allies and partners. But over the course of time, we know there's been a lot of historical reticence, if not downright policy roadblocks that prevent that. Be curious to know what is in the works these days to help free up our ability to really make JADC2 a combined opportunity. Thank you.
Great question. Anybody want to take that one on?
Okay, I'll start. From my perspective, JADC2 included allies and partners, right? The coalition part has been in there from the very beginning because there is no crisis or conflict where a combatant command is not going to be with allies and partners. That's what makes the strength of the United States against our adversaries. And so I think that's always been part of that. I think what is changing is the understanding and realization that in order to do that, in order to make sure that you have the right partnerships, that the sharing of that the right information has to occur, because it has to be built on trust. And so as we kind of think through CJAD C2, how can we showcase through technology the ability to share the right information without sharing the wrong information, and being able to secure the information so that if you have a relationship, either bidirectional relationship, tridirectional relationship, right, that you're able to keep the information segregated to the maximum extent possible to enable those all domain joint operations. So I think really this is about how do we showcase through technology the agility to be able to do that, to ensure that the information is protected while also sharing the right level of information. And I think that's how we're going to get there.
So, great question. I don't have an answer for you, but I will tell you that it is really important to the Coast Guard as well, because it's not only allies and partners. For the Homeland Defense mission, it's state, local, other federal agencies. It's contingency management in crisis for natural disasters. So really important. We are working in that direction, but no good answers. I think using modern technology and data science, I think that's a step in the right direction. But there's no silver bullet answer to your question, but definitely an area that we're digging into.
Thank you.
Probably one final point to throw out. So partnerships and the training and the exercises we do is really all about being ready. That includes what we do in the cyber domain. So we certainly want all that interoperability. Got to have it. We know it's a necessity. We see it today over in UCOM. However, right, the partner's got to be good, right? What we can't do is have information going out an open door in the wrong way. So the partnerships and that trust that we talk about is built day in the life, right? How much we interact, how close we are, the presence there, to make sure, right, that as we go through our cyber environment, in this country, understanding all our cybersecurity challenges, like they do too, right? Because it's a two-way street in order to really make this work. So again, there is no doubt in my mind from a technology standpoint, we can do this. The department's getting after mission partner environment. There's certainly other ones Indo-PACOM's working at. So the technology's there, the cloud affords it. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. But back to this training and resiliency model, that's critical that we work together to make sure, right, we know how to interact with that data correctly and to secure it, to be totally transparent.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'd like to relate your question to the question that Susan asked, associated with how do we serve up the right decision to a decision maker? How do we do combined joint command and control? At the essence of this is a design question. So let me ask the audience this. How many of you have ever remodeled a bathroom, built a house? By show of hands? Yeah, everybody. Okay, thank you. Did you just hire framers, plumbers, roofers, tile folks and say, come in and do the job? No. That's a really costly way to do business. It's also not all that effective. So one of the things that we've tackled from the Navy is creating a blueprint for what our information ecosystem looks like. And this gives a language to getting to the heart of how are decision makers making decisions, how are we pulling up alongside our allies, how are we sharing data and information, what are the right security protocols. It provides a framework to turn these intent-based conversations into action. And I see that occurring, particularly with the CJAD C2 conversation across services. I'd say more cowbell when it comes to that, more design-based conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, John Klein from Johnson Controls. Is there room in the information ecosystem that you talked about for facility readiness data, especially as it applies to defense critical infrastructure, so you could get ahead of problems before you have a failure? Thanks.
Well, I'll start. You can. Okay. Yes, absolutely. It is part of critical infrastructure. It's also part of general cybersecurity across all of our enclaves. Whatever we're going to do, our Cyber C2 operators need to have risk management capabilities across all of the areas, including facilities, operational technology. And so it is a part of the larger equation of how we're going to command and control holistically across our organization. Jen, did you want to add anything?
Yes. So when we define our ecosystem, it's all of that. It is our infrastructure, electricity, power, number of drops in a building. One of the biggest things we've done from the Navy perspective is define those shore components as platforms. So typically we think of platforms that go to sea. We have platforms ashore. And so we need to have the readiness metrics associated with our shore-based platforms, just as we do as things that float. And part of that, then this opens up the discussion of the entire kill chain or kill web, and making sure that we're not overemphasizing one area and completely overlooking others. All of these things have to work together to yield the outcome that we desire.
And when I hear that you say that, I understand that means that you want that readiness information in the cloud so it's available to the operators. Did I get that right?
So readiness information at the point of need, absolutely. And sometimes that can be in a cloud, sometimes that can be in other places. So,
Just one thing to add. From the Coast Guard perspective, I think, when I think of critical infrastructure, I think of the maritime transportation system, the MTS, the port facilities, right? So we engage with the port facilities on a frequent basis. Admiral Van is here. He's the commander of Coast Guard Cyber, and he frequently will send out cyber protection teams to port facilities to help them with cyber attacks. The key there is the partnership and trust that you need to build with the port facilities, right? Because I think a lot of times they're not willing to share proprietary information. They don't want you in your networks. So there's a level of trust that needs to be built to probably, that could probably apply to the DIB as well. But definitely we see that on the port facility side. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to General Glavy, sir. I can't wait to get to see the jet skis in action again. But beyond that, never underestimate the demand, the ingenuity of a service member to make things happen as we do that. So, but in your job, it's really critical as you're looking at the different advancements. We've heard about them all week here as well. As you're looking at those advancements in innovation in military information technology, what specifically have you seen that has impacted military outcome? Operations, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. There is certainly everything we've done to transform the network. I'll start there. We are in a hybrid cloud environment from DoD CIO to Don CIO to DISA and JFHQ DODE, really remarkable. This network today is not the network that you operated on. It is absolutely, I'm always room for improvement, but it's a 10x. It's a leap. It's a significant leap. We're executing Windows 11 execution, and it's not Windows 10, which was a very painful experience. So first of all, ma'am, the whole software solution, infrastructure solution, the whole platform solution, I know those are the buzzwords, but they actually mean something to me as a helicopter pilot, right? They really mean something. Ability to make our own luck on those applications now being provided from DISA in this case, really for us to do things like Power BI, Power Apps, our ability now to do dashboards and to give commanders real-time information in the environment he or she operates in to make decisions. It's really powerful, and we're moving out very fast. So that's certainly organic capabilities that we never have, that we're probably just scratching the itch on. Because a lot of our data, certainly Impact Level 5, data, right? We really control significantly and have a great visual acuity. And I will tell you, from a defensive cyberspace operations, it's totally changed the game. So, but the other part from Make Your Own Luck, especially with these young men and women and our Marines, we about a year ago stood up the Marine Corps Software Factory. Went down with the U.S. Army Futures Command, worked closely with them, and we have a small group. Matter of fact, Charlie Bach is here, my director. Just a small team, but doing outsized work. And they're Marines going through training, learning how to code, and they're coding. And as we deliver innovative capabilities, things like commercial maritime radars, right? And to be able to put those sensors on the battle space where and when we need them, and then to be able to create the interfaces required to turn those into tracks, JK type of tracks, right, in order to present on some cop somewhere, right, done by Marines. Like that interface, like we've never, you got to be kidding me. But those are examples, and you got to start somewhere, and being done by Marines with significant talent, and there's a lot of them, and we can create more of them. But I think it's really applicable to how the battle space is going to work. Certainly industry is so critical. Everything we do from an acquisition process is so important. But then there's going to be this idea of making your own luck, and to do it in places you didn't kind of think through beforehand. And so, that's some of the early returns that we're getting from that initiative. I would like to scale it and do even more, provide every MEF commander a capability to do this. I've seen firsthand the Joint Force move in this direction. Task Force Dragon over in UCOM, really phenomenal. We got Marines on that task force, but it is Army-led. I give them, General Corella, General O'Donoghue, a lot of credit, right? They are data-centric. So they're concerned about two things: command and control, the ability to make decisions and do it faster than the adversary. They've moved from mission to mission, from NEO to training and maintenance to ultimately, the ability to execute points of interest. It has been phenomenal to watch. The only thing that changes is the data, right? Where are they getting it from? How they do infusion correlation? But that's what their focus is, and it's a pretty amazing to watch. So I know we can do this, not a doubt in my mind. But again, amazing young men and women are probably going to lead us.
Anything to add, sir?
Yeah, I like that. I think one thing that's really changed in my eyes is velocity, right? And if you look at the scale of what we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, right? There's 300 million IP addresses, version 4. Version 6, there's 34 billion. We have nearly 300,000 forward-facing devices of some sort that is a potential attack vector. And if you look at even what's going on with all the open source reporting on living off the land and what the adversary is trying to do, if you would have talked to us a year, 2, 3 years ago, the ability to shore up a vulnerability was, we were talking days, weeks, and months in order to do that. Sometimes years, depending on when we'd find it. That's occurring in hours now, and sometimes even faster, sometimes a little bit slower. So the scale that we have to deal with and the velocity that we are getting after this, and it's not because of what we are doing up here, it's to General Glavy's point, it's those airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, Guardians, Coast Guardsmen that are leveraging your technology and thinking of innovative ways to get at this scale problem that then is able to, from a velocity standpoint, to get after it and shore it up. And I can give you example after example of the cyber warriors today that are making these things happen. And so as you simplify, as we talked about earlier, that's just going to make them that much more proficient. And that way we can empower them to do even more critical thinking and getting after the hard stuff, so that it's not in hours, we're preventing. We're preventing a lot more because we don't have to react. And so understanding that domain awareness that Admiral Bartz talked about, right? The maritime domain awareness. Well, there's a cyber domain awareness that we need your continual help in making sure that we understand every single piece of the cyber domain, and then how we scale from a velocity standpoint to get after it.
Yes, Admiral.
Good afternoon. Ray Spicer from the U.S. Naval Institute. Higher military guy, higher industry guy. The great benefit of this conference is people like you who show up and share your requirements. So thank you for doing that, first of all. But as you think about your requirements and you think about what, there's lots of industry here in the room. Are there things that are top of mind for you about what industry could do better for you, could do differently, could stop doing, as you think about needs from the industry side?
Thank you, sir.
So I'd like to take that first. We need you as strategic partners for many reasons. I mean, I'll give an example. Palantir can sell us analytic capabilities, or Palantir can help us define our ecosystem the way they went through the journey to simplify their and unify theirs across their organization. So strategic partners helping us get after some of these challenging problems that are about changing culture and the way we treat our information ecosystem, very helpful. I want to get away from selling one-off cloud environments to our programs, and I want to move to a managed set of enterprise services that our cyber C2 operators can see into because they know about them. I need your help in making sure that one-off cloud environments don't keep proliferating across programs. And so I need you to be strategic partners with us in helping solve our problems. Guaranteed there's a lot of business. I see commercial capabilities moving more and more to the tactical edge. We already talked about cloud at the tactical edge. We are experimenting with hyperconverged infrastructure on ships and changing the calculus of potentially what our end-to-end network looks like in the Navy. So there's lots of opportunity to be our partners and help us solve our problems by listening to our folks about where the challenges are and coming with us on our journey to create innovative solutions to our problem sets.
I got one, sir. Probably protect us from us. We're black box centric. We love black boxes, right?
Yep.
Lifelong aviator. Just all I care about is the black box. We live and die by that black box. And I think more importantly, as we get our requirements and try to be a little more precise, or maybe imprecise would be actually in our favor, right? We got to get less focused on hardware, right? Hardware, commoditize it, right? Is it GPU, CPU? What are the things we need to go after? And really the main effort is all about the software. And whether it's how the software is going to provide ubiquitous transport of data through APIs and who I got to connect with and when I got to connect with, right? The architecture, the engineering that makes up the capability is as important as the swap of the black box. We got to become a software-centric force. We'll never get CJAD C2 done. It's just really a software event we're going through, and we're having a hell of a time. We're having a hell of a time defining it because we're black box-centric, and we're having a hell of a time really describing it to you all to make it a reality. I know we're going to get there, but sometimes protect us from us, and we got to get more versed in this idea of software, right, being the main effort, being the O&M, right? What you give me on day one, what happens on day 21 and day 221? And, it's got to, back to that move, counter move, right? That's all software. We really don't account for that probably in our acquisition process like we should. And some of that's O&M. Some of it has to go down to, the Victor and the squadron level, right, in order to stay current on what you actually need to provide. So I would tell you, we got to kind of change the whole dialogue here, and we got to get out of black boxes, and there's nothing wrong with black boxes, but the idea that software is the driver, it's the main effort, it's what we talk about all the time, and not necessarily a black box.
I'd like to offer a yes and to what General Glavy talked about here. And my and is now how, because I firmly agree. So since I'm a resource sponsor, I spend a lot of time talking about requirements. And one of the fundamental things that we're trying to drive through N2 and 6 is separation of functional requirements versus technical requirements. Functional is how do we want a capability to work, where does it fit, some high level, where does this go? Technical requirements, those are the things that can iterate very, very quickly, depending on advances in technology, advances or changes in our cybersecurity posture. So we've spent a lot of times in our acquisition apparatus of defining the requirements, and they all get jumbled up together. Well, the second one of those rapidly changing technical requirements changes, it's like you've hit the big ladder in Chutes and Ladders, and you're all the way back to the starting point. So separating our functional requirements and our technical requirements, and then applying the right acquisition models to allow us to go fast and iterate quickly, particularly on those technical requirements, sets us up for success.
Engineer, helicopter pilot.
So I'll give a more practical answer from a Coast Guard perspective. What do I need help in? AI, right? I need to know, how do I buy it? How do I train it? How do I sustain it? How do I make sure it's telling me it's not hallucinating? I think the more I ask those questions, the more I get blank stares. I think we may all be in that boat, but I don't know. There's maybe some people in here. I know my new boss is hiring 50 AI specialists. I'm not really sure where those people are going to come from or if they even exist. I know he's creating billets for them. So both from a DHS standpoint and a Coast Guard standpoint, I think AI is going to fundamentally change everything for us. It's going to increase productivity. Maybe we don't have staffing shortages anymore. I don't know. But I think AI is the area that I need help in. Thank you for that, sir.
The final thing I'll just offer just real quick, 2 words: build capacity. We've got a scale problem, right? So how do we build capacity? There's multiple ways of doing it. How do we leverage AI? How do we leverage the force? How do we move away from black boxes to software? Because at the end of the day, we've got to generate capacity to get after the modernization piece that we know that we need to do. And so how do we build capacity with what we already have today? Requirements process, right? Decades we've talked about the requirements process and the problems with acquisition and requirements. Help us understand where we can help you, help us better, right? I would say we want to be less precise, but we got to be precise enough. And so what is that ticking point or that teeter-totter point to where it's balanced, to where you have enough information to enable us to be better, faster, scaled, but not too much to where we inhibit your ability to innovate? How do we improve through education and training the workforce, whether it's our workforce, your workforce, because at the end of the day, strategic partnership says we're all part of the same workforce. So how do we make all that together to make it, to get after the, I'd say, mid-level leaders to understand technology well enough to empower the young individuals who grew up with this technology and who use it day in and day out and have used it from the very beginning. They are the ones that are critical to understanding how better to use it. So help us build capacity.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Everyone here in your organizations, you all have what we think is sizable budgets, but at the end of the day really isn't enough money to get everything done. And you heard me when I was talking about the role of Ms. Edgen and all of the areas that she's responsible. Let me start with you, Jennifer. How do you prioritize your investments in information technology and warfighter capabilities to ensure readiness and effectiveness needed today?
So first of all, we leverage the CNO's vision. And that's always a great starting point to start to prioritize our investments. But we've spent a lot of time supporting that discussion with analyzing where are our current technologies in relationships to our requirements. We're starting the journey of starting to put valuation criteria against that. We're very lucky in the Navy to use a robust budgeting process, particularly for the POM cycle, where we get a lot of cross-functional looks at our priorities, from the future state vision to the fleet priorities that come in and are prioritized from the fleets themselves. And as the resource sponsor, we spend a lot of time talking to stakeholders. We spend a lot of time doing detailed analytic work to make sure that we are getting every ounce out of every dollar that could come our way. And I'm a normal human being. Somebody offered me more money, I'd take it in a heartbeat. But our challenge and what we continue to ruthlessly execute on is making the most out of every dollar that we have. And that's the value that an OpNav resource sponsor can provide.
Can I take a shot at that one too?
Absolutely.
I see some of my colleagues in here. So I think the key is not really the prioritization of investments, but it's also the prioritization of what you're going to divest. We in the Coast Guard love to hold on to our toys, and you got to get rid of that stuff and move on to the new capabilities. And we have a real hard time with that. So I think we got to figure out what we're going to divest in addition to what we're going to prioritize to invest.
Thank you. I'm gonna jump back to the workforce again, which I spent a lot of time on and a little passionate about, as we talk about the shortages of the skilled individuals that we need in the workforce. You can pick a number anywhere from 500,000 to 700,000 shortage in the cyber work in the work field. So how are we going to make that up as we go forward? And I love the story of General Skinner, and I'm going to let him talk about some of the things he's doing. But as I talk to many of the CEOs of industry and industry in general, do we really need everybody to have a 4-year degree? When we have thousands and thousands of great professionals coming out of uniform who have years of experience in the cyber environment, can we put together a 2-year program with their experience to have a very qualified cyber workforce as we do that? General Skinner, tell your story of the young man that came on stage and the jump you took to says, no, they don't all have to have 4 years degrees.
Yeah, so at TechNet Cyber in Baltimore, I had an individual named Gabe, who was an intern, who came into the organization and then kind of without a degree, and he's the one that's running your identity for the department, the DoD, the GFED, the Global Federated Directory. Pretty powerful, and I would offer today more than ever, the department is flexible in how we recruit, how we retain, and how we professionally developed. I mean, if you would have asked me 3 or 4 years ago if the Air Force would have said warrant officers need to come back, I'd have said that's not in the cards. But they are coming back, especially in the IT, starting out in IT and cyber. That's just another example of the things that we were trying to, with Indissa, we have Workforce 2025, which is our effort to get after the talent and upskilling our talent. But you understand what the requirements are. You got to understand what disciplines and what education you really need. But working with NPS, working with industry, working with academia, really getting after this whole notion of it's a whole person concept of how we make sure that we take care of the workforce, all the way from when we recruit them to all the way when they retire. And a lot of times they're not going to stay in that many years. I would still offer, even on the civilian side of the house, we haven't changed the model quick enough to where we think that a civilian's going to come in and they're going to stay 20, 30 years. We've got to make it more agile to where they can go to industry for a couple of years and then come back. Or start in industry, come to the government, and then go back, and make that more flexible. There's programs in place. Jane can talk about them a lot better than I can, and Jennifer. But those programs 10 years ago weren't around. 5 years ago, they weren't around. And so the department's really getting after this. How do we make it more flexible? Because at the end of the day, it's about the culture and having the right culture to enable that.
Absolutely agree. And I was able to meet Gabe, and you talk about crazy smart and really understand. He didn't have the barriers and the bureaucracy that we were all used to. He just jumped in and got things done. It was amazing. What are you looking at, General Glavy, for the Marine Corps?
So I think General Skinner kind of nailed it. Certainly there's things we're just going to lag industry on, pay and certain other things. But at the end of the day, this idea of reward of service, and whether it's civilian or the Marines or any of the joint force, right, really empowering what they do and the fact that they make a difference. For the Marine Corps, the center of gravity of our network is Marine Corps Cyberspace Operations Group, right, down in Quantico, amazing place. And every MEF commander that comes to town, I take them down there to make sure they get to see what is going on. And it's top shelf, amazing professionals, empowered to do things, on our network through, of course, the C2, the command and control of JFHQ Doden, and they do it. And certainly we're always in a situation of will the talent stay, will the talent move? But my bet is if we continue to empower them, we can continue to give them the tools to succeed, and God help us continue to go after whatever, incremental pay increases we can. I think we're going to be in a good place. But they got to be in it for the mission. It's more than the money. It's got to be something that they care about, and their opinion matters. We don't do anything on our network. Nothing on our network happens without the McCog being the final vote, the final say. And it's really a powerful model, and you can feel it when you go down there. It's a cultural thing. We got some great commanders down there, and certainly same up at Fort Meade with Mark IV Cyber. I would give them all the credit as well. But these are areas that people are empowered to such a way that probably hard to get anywhere else. So, that's part of it. And there's a lot more that we're trying to do to go after this and make it more and more rewarding. At the end of the day, we should train them to such a level that they can do whatever it is they want to do. Right, and they have all these skills and trade craft, right? They could walk in and work for any of these amazing people out here and be phenomenal. And then the onus is on us as leadership, somehow, some way to tip the scale in our favor, that they decide to stay a part of this incredible team. But I would say empowerment and the mission really matter. Thank you.
Great. Department of the Navy.
We're always going to be short workers, not just in the information domain, the cyber and information domain. There are fewer people in many respects, right? So where we can partner with automation as a team partner and reduce the number of people we need in certain cycles, and then hone those people into jobs where we really do need the human in the loop. I mean, that should be part of our calculus going forward. I am losing some of my key folks to DHS because they've implemented, they've taken seriously the hiring, the cyber accepted service hiring capabilities that we have not yet in the Department of Defense put in place. I just was having a conversation with my daughter at lunchtime. She's interviewing for jobs for this summer, and she was frustrated with the human resources people at the company she was interviewing with, and I said, well, honey, get used to that, because that's your rest of your life. And no offense to human resources workers in this world. I know you're in the government, your hands are constrained in many respects, but times are changing. And I told my daughter on the phone, when I'm done with my career in defense, maybe I'll go work for OPM and blow up the GS scale. Because, we can laugh, but I really think we have to rethink that. To General Blavy's point, hopefully we'll pay them enough. I do think people come in and want to work because they're really close to the mission. We've had a couple of people leave and come back and take pay cuts because they want to be close to the mission. They want to be doing those things. So we have some vignettes where that has occurred. Whatever we can do, we've got a lot of hiring authorities that we can use, but I would say that sometimes the HR folks don't want us to use them because of pay parity with other career fields. Got to get over that if we want. This is our future, and so we need to figure out how to, one, attract them, recruit them, retain them. I do think, again, mission's a big part of it. Maybe we don't have to pay them as much, but we got to have those flexibilities. And then we should have a world where They want to flow from in and out of government. Go work for industry, come back and work for us. I think that's the future sustainable model.
That is great. We're going to go into our final speed round here, and I'll start down with Admiral Bartz to give you each the last minute to sum up and message out there to our partners here with industry and academia and the government as we go forward. So while you're thinking about that, just want to remind you all that at 2:45, we have Admiral Gautier in Hall D, a great speaker, really exciting the work that he's doing right now. At 4:15 in Hall D, we have the women in AFCEA, and we have a fabulous fireside chat with our very own Miss Rathbun. We're all looking forward to that, and we'll be recognizing some winners and leaders at that time. So, Admiral Bartz, over to you, sir.
Thank you, General. So the title of this is, do we have the tools and technologies we need to enable the information as a warfighting multiplier? And I just want to take this opportunity to really recognize my team for an initiative that they did that really kind of changed the way that we do business in the Coast Guard. About a year ago, somebody sent me a picture of a Starlink terminal on a cruise ship. It was in January. And I brought my team in and I said, why can't we get this? What's holding us up? I will tell you that I have never seen a deployment go faster and have more impact on the Coast Guard in my entire 34-year career. So within about 4 months, they had 3 pilot projects. Those pilot projects passed. We got the commander of Cybercom to take a little risk and give the ATO. And we, within about a year, we did over 70 deployments on our major cutters. All of our major cutters have commercial PLEO broadband. And it is amazing what it has done for sea duty, life at sea. You know, my daughter's in the Coast Guard, and she used to tell me, Dad, I'm coming into port. I have to order fuel, and it takes me 2 hours because of the connectivity issues. And now that takes less than a minute to do it. So it is, not only is it better for life at sea, it's also improving command and control. We had a VTC with the Vice Commandant. We had one of our pilot projects on Coast Guard Cutter Eagle, and the captain was on. She was underway. She was in the mid-Atlantic. She told the Vice Commandant, I was in 25-foot seas. We had 15-degree rolls, and we never lost connection once. And so I want to commend my team. Some of them are here today. For getting that done, getting it done so quickly, and having such great impact on the Coast Guard. So, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Ms. Edgin.
Okay, thank you very much for having me on the panel. I'd like to sum up kind of my remarks today with a couple of points. Point one, we started and framed this panel as a technology discussion. That's one lens. To get decision advantage, to get warfighting advantage, we need to include our sailors. Our sailors armed with technology, that's how we fight and win. Thank you.
Thank you. General Glavy.
I'll just leave it with this. Small h, capital S, right? Commoditize hardware and make software the main effort and the enduring capability we got to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. General Skinner.
I would just say, at the end of the day, the nature of warfare hasn't changed, and it's our responsibility to be lethal and to have the right velocity. And it's through the partnerships that we have with you. It's the partnerships that we have with our allies and partners that are going to continue giving us that positional advantage. So thank you.
Ma'am.
So everything everybody said, we have amazing teams. We are, I think, moving in the right direction. We got to be teammates, pull together, and make this happen. So thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
Please welcome Colonel Mike Black back to the stage.
All right, how about a round of applause for our fantastic panel? And we heard a lot of things today. We heard about technology and tools are our rising tide. We talked about showcasing through technology. We talked about prioritizing what we divest. We talked about the network being a 10x. We also said, we answered the question. We said information is already a warfighting multiplier, and many other things. Move, counter move, a parity of the network, velocity and scale, and build to capacity. Just a lot of important things here. What we're going to do is we're going to present a book to all of our panelists as a small token of our appreciation. It's a book from the Naval Institute entitled Russian Information Warfare by Billiana Lilly. And inside that, this is not just my words, I heard Admiral Spicer say this, the coveted AFCEA bookmark is inside the book as well. So,
Coveted.
General Lawrence already mentioned what was coming up, so I'm not going to say that again. But again, I just want to thank the panelists, and I'm going to pass out your books.
Thank you.
As a reminder, as you depart, this session was pre-approved for continuing education credit. If you'd like to receive attendance documentation, please scan your badge at the table on the way out of the room.